Welcome, everyone. It's great to see people signing on now. We have 27 attendees already. I think we'll get started because I just want to give a brief introduction to Mrs. Kidd and tell you a little bit about what we have planned this evening. I'm George Alexis, the Superintendent of Schools here in Watchung, and we have Karen Kidd, our principal at Valley View. The idea behind this Zoom session is to help introduce the instructional benefits that we see with proposed new schedule that we're working towards for next year. I think we also want to not only talk a little bit about the math program, because I know Mrs. Kidd has presented at a board meeting about the new math progression, and we've talked recently about some enhancements to math instructional time and the math instructional program. But I think we also want to clarify some potential misunderstandings about the schedule, both current and future. And so with that, I'm going to, and we'll have time, of course, for questions. With that, I'm going to ask Mrs. Kidd to pull up the presentation for this evening. And we'll begin the presentation as I begin any Board of Education presentation, with just a brief overview of the instructional vision for the district. As a Board of Education and administrative leadership team, we're committed to inspiring learners, students and adults towards exploration, inquiry, and collaboration. We believe it's important to make the program, the academic and co-curricular program, student-centered, and give students the opportunity to discover and to develop independent and critical thinking skills. Authentic learning experiences are an important part of our instructional vision, and any way we can create opportunities for students to apply their academic skills in real-world contexts is an opportunity we believe is important. By stressing inquiry and collaboration, we create opportunities for students to work together towards problem solving, to use creative ideas, to look at problems from multiple perspectives. And we never forget the importance of making sure we have a safe learning environment, an inclusive learning environment, one that is marked by equity and acceptance and empathy. We believe in the importance of reflection and ethical decision-making. In the 21st century, it's important, it's really a requirement that everyone continues to learn and grow, to embrace differences and prepare for a world that changes every 15 minutes. So with that idea, we have been trying to come up with different approaches to making our middle school experience even more student-centered, where we are creating opportunities to deepen understanding for our students and to create more instructional time so that we can help reach that level of understanding with our students. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Principal Kidd to talk a little bit about the schedule, the research, and the process she's gone through this year in collaboration with the faculty to look at different ways to achieve those goals.
Thank you, Mr. Alexis. Good evening, everyone. I'm so glad that you could join us this evening. What our focus is we're unlocking time for teaching and learning. We have a certain amount of hours every day that we can be with our students and we could be with each other as educators. A master schedule or a Bell schedule really dictates how we utilize those hours every day and for the days throughout the year. So why won't this, here we go. There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So basically what we looked at is from the time that I began as principal at Valley View, which seems like years ago, and it also seems like days ago, we started our journey looking at what works and what doesn't work at Valley View. We've done that through individual staff meetings, whole staff meetings. I had meetings with parents. One of my first meetings with parents, it was in person, which was nice, was in the Valley View Media Center. And parents shared with me their experiences in the Watchung School District, in Bayberry and in Valley View, things they were concerned about, things that they loved. And I took all those, the feedback from the staff, from the parents. And of course, I also interviewed some students, and all of those students are in high school right now, about their experiences and their impressions. So the concerns that kept overlapping were curriculum overload and fast-paced classes, lack of flexible time for academic support, and collaboration within our current school day. And then, of course, all of these things are going to be exacerbated as we return from COVID and the virtual teaching. So again, I just want to welcome everybody. And what we'll be talking about today is how we would like to take the time that we are allocated every day and use it in different ways and change the bell schedule to unlock time to improve teaching and learning at Valley View. Mr. Alexis went through our district vision statement earlier, so I won't repeat that, but it is here and it's on our site if anyone would like to read it. As I was saying, is our rationale for change. Since I started at Watchung at Valley View School, I've met with students, teachers, and parents in different venues before COVID and during COVID. And the things that kept popping up were curriculum overload and fast-paced classes, lack of flexible time for academic support and collaboration within our school day. And then, of course, these things are only going to be exacerbated as our students come back to full day school after COVID and working virtually, hybrid, and in half days. So the first thing I wanted to show you is the current Valley View schedule. For those of you who are new to Valley View this year or haven't entered Valley View yet, the Valley View schedule that is in existence is a rotate and drop schedule with a traditional Monday. So I'm just going to click on this link and show you what that looks like. Let's see if it works. It is a PDF. So basically every Monday, students would follow a traditional schedule. They would have homeroom, and then they would have 9 periods. The 5th period would be broken up into 2 different periods, 5A and 5B, one of which would be a student lunch. The other would be a study hall, band, chorus, or art enrichment. Then on A-day schedule, they would drop period 4, and this would allow for a little bit of extra time for each of the classes. On a B day, they would drop period 1. On a C day, they would drop period 2. And you see how period 6 moves to the end of the day. And it goes period 3, 4, 1, just so you can see the order. A D day, you'd start with period 4, you would drop period 3, and you would go 9, 6, 7 to end your day. So that's the current Valley View schedule. There are definite positives and negatives to a rotate and drop schedule, but our staff felt that this schedule did not meet the needs of the school. Their parents also had issues with some of the I guess the time of the periods and the timing of the periods and some confusion for the younger students. There's all different reasons why we were looking at a different schedule. So basically, let me take you through our process. On January 2020, when I began, after getting all of this input, after teacher interviews, speaking with students and speaking with parents, I created a committee, a scheduling committee, where we examined those current needs of the student and the staff. And then all the way up into the fall, we started making some student center changes to our current traditional schedule. Most of those were due to COVID, but we had this research and these things that we were looking at. So one of the things we looked at was implementing a version of the AB block schedule. But again, it was only for half days because of COVID. There was virtual and hybrid learning going on. What we were trying to do is make sure that we gave students equal amount of time so they could attend all of their classes on those half days, because a traditional half day class is much shorter than the hour classes we were giving them. Over the winter and the spring, we compared multiple schedules, we collected feedback. In April, we had a virtual workshop where we worked with Montgomery upper middle school teachers. They have been living in the AB block. Before that, they were in a traditional schedule. They've been living in the AB block for, I want to say 6 years now. The high school changed first and had so much success that the middle school also looked at changing it. So we worked with those teachers to talk about what the transition looked like, how it helps teachers, how it helps parents, and how it helps the students. We gave a student survey in May, and the staff decided that the AB block schedule of all the schedules they looked at was the best choice for us for our upcoming school year. We met with union representation to build consensus and to verify that it met their contract requirements. This June, we started talking about professional development, lesson planning, use of time, and we also presented to the curriculum committee of the Board of Education for approval. So what the schedule committee found, as a school, what we need is an intervention and enrichment period, somewhere where kids can go for extra help or they can go for additional challenge. We need longer class periods to allow for deeper student-centered lessons. We need additional professional and collaborative time. To go back for a second, the professional and collaborative time, currently our teachers do not have time built in their day to meet with one another. So if you're in a classroom with 2 teachers, those co-teachers do not have time within their day to meet about students, to meet about lesson plans, to meet about resources. So that's definitely a very important thing. The teachers also who teach the same courses or courses above and below each other in leveling also don't have that time to speak with each other about what's working well for the kids, what types of lessons they're doing, and all of that. So that's something that we definitely need. They also don't have time to revise the curriculum resources based on the changing standards and student needs. Again, that time is not built into the school day for them. I talked about the planning time with co-teachers, and they also don't have that time to meet with parents throughout the year, to pick up the phone or to meet in person or to meet virtually. The things that we want to preserve, the things that we're proud of. We do have a strong core academic program. During that 5th period that I was talking about earlier that's shared with lunch, we are able to offer some electives, band, chorus, and art enrichment. We do have a double period of language arts, and as you can see by our latest test scores, that our scores did go up, and that is a strong course for us. And we also have, which is unique to our middle school, our SOAR program, which is an enrichment program for our students. So this is what the committee and our school believes. We believe that block scheduling reflects our school vision. As a professional learning community, we prioritize curriculum, collaboration, and climate, which leads to improved learning for all of our students. Block schedule will allow us to add our wants, preserve what we value, and better implement best practice to maintain the highest academic achievement. Block scheduling will create a less pressured, more comfortable atmosphere in our school, making Valley View a place where teaching and learning are exciting for students and staff. And I do have to stress this. In a normal year, pre-COVID, the academic pressures on middle and high school students have heightened over the past 10 years. There's a lot of anxiety, ADHD, stress as a result of this, bullying, things of that nature. So we really want to look at making a less pressured atmosphere for our kids. And now coming off of COVID, like I said before, that's more important than ever. So benefits for students, the most important considerations. This new intervention and enrichment period I'm going to explain to you, deeper understanding of content, more opportunity to explore and collaborate in small groups, increased flexibility and continuity of instruction for students in our different pull-out programs like band, SOAR, and basic skills instruction, stress reduction, avoiding that curriculum overload that was shared with me numerous times when I started here, focusing on the less subjects each day, having staggered due dates for homework and assessments, and stronger student-teacher relationships, more access to the media center, to our math teachers, and to our STEM lab. And of course, they will just like school better. Benefits for our teachers. Extended uninterrupted class periods, allowing our teachers to use their best practices, accounting for various learning styles and providing more time to deeply explore issues as per the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. It's very conducive to our Danielson constructivist approach. It's conducive to the infusion of technology. It allows for an ambiguous system of intervention enrichment, more professional time to meet the growing curricular demands, planning, and providing that feedback to students and parents. It gives us more flexible collaborative time and stress reduction. The teachers would get to see less students each day for longer periods of time, which leads to stronger student-teacher relationships. The benefits for you, our parents. You'll have more opportunity to conference with our teachers, whether it's over the phone, in person, or over a Zoom meeting. Alternating day schedule allows for better communication between class meetings. Your family time increases with the reduction of the daily course load and increased academic support at school. Children will like school better, which makes it a happier house. I know that, I have 2 teenagers. There's a lot of research out there. Some of the research that we went to comes from Turning Points, Transforming Middle Schools. It talks about the opportunities that block schedule provides our students as opposed to more traditional schedules. Slowing down the pace, reducing the homework because they're getting the chance to do that individual or collaborative practice in the schools. I won't read this to you, but it's very important to know that we did look at research. So this is what a sample student schedule would look like. So you just got to see our current schedule, the rotating drop. This is the sample student schedule. Homeroom would be at the very beginning of the day and embedded. You'd have an A day and a B day schedule. Block 1 would be from 8:15 to 8:37. Block 2 would be 9:40 to 11:02. Then you would have the lunch and flex period, and I'll talk about that in a second. Block 3 and then block 4. So they would have 4 classes a day. On this schedule, the A day, they would have language arts. They would have their cycle class, in this case, STEM. Their last 2 classes would be social studies and then their world language, in this case, French. Their classes would be 82 minutes. They would have a 30-minute lunch period. Some kids also prefer to go outside during lunch, so they would eat and then maybe have the opportunity to go outside and run around a bit or into the gym. And then they would have a 30-minute flex. Now, flex is a key point we'll talk about a little bit more, but what flex is it's just a flexible time for students. They get to see, what do I need to do at this point? Where do I need to be? Do I need to catch up on an assessment or a paper? Do I need to continue to work on my STEM project? Do I want to go see my math teacher because he talked about a challenge problem and I really want to go check it out because it's interesting me? B days, they'd go see the rest of their classes. They would have LA again because LA in Watchung is a double period. Then they would have their math class. Then they would have lunch. And maybe instead of flex on that day, they would have band. Maybe on Tuesdays they meet for band. So we're not getting rid of our elective options and our music program. Block 3, they would have science, and then they would have either health or PE to end their day. I do want to let you know there is a typo. That homeroom there, 8:08 to 8:13, should not be there. Homeroom would be absorbed into the first class of the day. I apologize for the typo. So flex, a little bit more about it. It would be 30 minutes a day, and these are the different options the kids would have. Interventions. Do I need extra help? Did I not understand something? Enrichment. Do I want to challenge myself? Is there something I want to work on a little bit more and take it to the next level? Band, chorus, and art enrichment, which is offered with study hall currently. Our math teachers would be available every day to help kids or to challenge kids Monday through Friday. They would have options for movement if they needed. If there were kids who wanted to have study hall, working with a group of friends on a project, or just having quiet time to read, we would make spaces for them available. Assembly programs, instead of me taking away class time to talk to the kids about, let's see, a reminder of the dress code, I would do it during this time rather than taking away class time. Media center access, as we enhance our media center, the students would have access to it to use different equipment, to get books, different technology, and then of course our STEM lab. That would also be accessible to students every day to continue the work that they're doing in either their innovation design or their STEM class, or to do other projects. Academic supports. So we have a basic skills program currently for math and language arts. Students are recommended and invited to take the course. What happens in our current schedule is students miss their entire course. So if they're in STEM, they get pulled out for their entire STEM period, maybe once a week. What that does is that makes them miss instruction. If they're in a group project, it interferes with that. And the teachers and the students do the best they can to help them catch up or to modify assignments. But what we would like to do in this schedule, since the period would be 82 minutes, instead of missing the entire 82 minutes of, say, art, the students would miss half of that period to get some extra help in math or language arts, and then would return to art for the second half, or vice versa, go for the first half and then return. But this way, they're not missing their projects, they're not missing the instruction, they're still getting to go to those enjoyable classes that kids love to explore. That's the point of middle school, is to have those exploratory courses for all students. So this basic skills program would allow the kids to get the extra support they need in math or language arts, and not miss those exploratory courses. And then also the flex intervention and enrichment that we spoke about. So as students needed extra help, maybe I want to go work with Miss Franco in her science room on a project or on a lab we were doing. Now I can go do that. Or maybe I want to work with Mr. McCarthy on some puzzling theories that he introduced in class earlier. I can go do that. So giving those kids those opportunities to do what they need and kind of monitor what they need during that flex period instead of sitting in a quiet study hall. The other key to this is that if the teachers need the students to come to them, the teachers would be requiring the students to come to them during this period, because we know if a student's having difficulty in, say, language arts, they may not want to go to their language arts teacher during this time. They may want to go to their social studies teacher and work on a social studies project. But if that language arts teacher really needs the child, the language arts teacher can request the child to come to them if he or she is available. So the flex assignments for teachers would be 30 minutes a day. The teacher assignment would vary. They would have an academic or intervention and enrichment period. Language arts, science, and social studies would be available once per week for kids to get some extra help or enrichment. Math and STEM teachers would be available every day during the week, again, for intervention or enrichment. When the teachers aren't available for the academic support, they'd be there for supervisory support, maybe during lunch or recreation time, and then also for advisory, which is social emotional program. So basically, when we're looking at the shift from our current schedule to the new schedule, we're looking at taking a 41-minute or a 52-minute period of time for a class. And how do we break that down? And there's different names you can talk about and different labels you can use for different parts of a lesson. I used some very basic ones and happy ones. Entice, enlighten, and engage. So if you look at the difference, between the blue and the green, the current and what we'd like to do in the fall, you'll notice that in a lesson, teachers don't really get much time to teach. Once attendance is taken, once kids settle down, they're doing the entice, which is like a warm up. Maybe they're reviewing what they did the night before, going over homework, or reviewing a previous lesson for 10 to 15 minutes. Enlighten, the teacher's introducing something new or reviewing something that was a misconception that maybe the kids didn't understand. And engage, this is when all the kids are practicing some problems and the teacher's trying to walk around and see who understands and who doesn't understand. And the reason that we have a range of minutes is because it really depends on what the lesson is and who the group of kids are at the time, how much time a teacher can dedicate. I've walked into classrooms where after they've gone over homework, they realized that the period is almost over. The teacher has introduced something and the students are doing the practice, the homework, independently. And you just have to hope that they understood and learned the correct way to do it and that they're not practicing it incorrectly or panicking because they didn't have the opportunity to ask a question from their teacher or from a peer, so they have clarity and can do whatever it is that evening independently. So then it continues on to the second day. Again, they would do the entice. Then they might do the independent practice to make sure all of the kids understood, or some more shared practice. And then another thing they might do is an assessment, a closure, a reflection, something like that. So in 2 days, they're learning, and we're hoping that they're getting the reinforcement and also getting lifted to the level they need. What we see with an 82-minute period is we see the opportunity for children to get engaged, to have that enticement, to get taught new content or reinforced content, then have the opportunity to work collaboratively on something, make sure it's reinforced, to have individual practice and application, and that closure and reflection. Basically, what we're hoping is that the kids who need the extra help, or the kids who get it right away, are easier to identify, and we can give them more opportunities for stronger learning. So a lot of people ask about math. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to show you a math time comparison with our schedule pre-COVID, which is the rotate and drop with the traditional Monday, our proposed schedule, and the conclusions. So the total instructional minutes over 2 weeks pre-COVID was 392 minutes. Our proposed schedule is asking or looking at 410 minutes, and that's over 2 weeks. That would be an additional 6 hours of math per year. And that would go for all students. For the academic support, the kids who need the basic skills instruction, they need that extra support. Currently, pre-COVID, they get 80 minutes over 2 weeks. In our proposed schedule, they would get 200 minutes over 2 weeks. That is an additional 40 hours of mathematics instruction per year. And those math academic support or basic skills classes would be taught by certified math teachers, and students would be assigned to it based on need. Now, when we're looking at our enrichment and remediation opportunities, those are built into the schedule. Currently, we have none. In the proposed schedule, they would have the opportunity for enrichment or mediation with their math teacher every day for 30 minutes. That's 300 minutes over 2 weeks. That's 100 hours per year additional that they would have their math teachers available for them. And again, that's for all students. Whoops, it went too quickly. So the total minutes for mathematics over a 2-week period, including academic support, is an additional 146 hours per year. The total minutes of mathematics over a 2-week period without the academic support, I apologize, let me just see if it'll let me show you, is 106, it looks like. Yep, 106 hours per year. So that's with academic support not included. Okay, so we just wanted to make sure that everyone could see how the math time increases drastically. The opportunity for kids to have more math whether, again, that's academic support or enrichment. So I know I shared it at the last board meeting, but I thought I'd share it again. One of our parents did catch that I was missing a line in my chart, so I apologize. But I did want to talk briefly about the math progression and just kind of show where we were. And as part of our journey in looking on how to continually improve our programming, our math teachers got together and looked at our current progression and what the possibilities were and how to help kids be more successful and meet them where they are. So the current progression is kids go from 5th grade math to 6th grade math to 7th grade math. After 7th grade, they either branch to 8th grade math or Algebra 1. We have a very small number of children that take Algebra 1 in 7th grade math and then end up in geometry. I think it's 2 this year. Now, the way that would happen, from what I've heard, is it kind of changed every year. They use the same resources for each grade level, except for Algebra 1. So the only true course that was separate from the rest of the grade levels was the Algebra 1 course. And then for the few students that took geometry was geometry. So what we did is we revised our math progression to, again, help bridge those gaps and give kids more opportunities. From 5th grade, students would go to 6th grade math or 6th grade accelerated math. And then from there, there's the puzzle. Depending on how they perform in that class would depend where they go next. So they have the opportunity from 6th grade to go from 6th grade math, 6th grade accelerated math, and then that dash line indicates a few children may be eligible to jump over 7th grade and go right to Algebra 1. Once in 7th grade, whether it's 7th grade math or 7th grade accelerated math, again, depending how a child performs and their readiness, they can go to 8th grade math or Algebra 1. After a student is in Algebra 1, they may jump to geometry. So we may have, again, some 8th graders in the future taking geometry. So I'm sure you have lots of questions, things rolling around in your head about the block schedule or about the math progression, and I'd be happy to answer them.
Mrs. Kidd, did you address the how you're going to go about tracking the flex period and having an accountability system?
No, I did not. Thank you, Mr. Alexis. So basically, let me see if I can get this back on. Genesis, the program that we use for our student information system, for our grading, for our attendance, once the kids get into their flex period, they sign in on their Chromebook or on a Chromebook assigned to the classroom, whichever we prefer. And that will tell us exactly where they're located. So for safety reasons, we'll always know where the kids are during that period of time. But it also will help us track how many students are choosing which things, so we know if we have to make more options available and adjust as we go throughout the year.
It looks like Mrs. Bibiano has her hand up. Erin, can you unmute her?
Ms. Bibiano is able to speak, but she has to unmute herself.
I hit something. I think it's a brilliant program, and to effectively ready these kids for normalcy. But what systems are in place to measure the effectiveness of this program, and how do we compare ourselves to other districts in New Jersey?
Well, because this is designed, Mrs. Bibiano, and I'll start, and Mrs. Kidd, you feel free to jump in, because it's designed to improve the instructional opportunities for the students and raise student achievement. We'll be using our typical indicators of how we go about doing that. So we have multiple means, including grades and student performance in class, the iReady program that we implemented midway through this year. And also state testing is returning next year. So those are just a few
Okay.
of the ways that we can do that. As far as other districts go, I'm not sure how to address that in terms of this program, but I mean, the same ways that the state compares districts and provides data or ways to measure against other districts.
But I think the program is great. Hello.
Yes.
I'm not done yet. I
We can
think
hear
the
you.
program sounds great to ready these kids, to acclimate them to normalcy. And I really support this program 100%. Karen, Kidd, George, I thank you for all you've done and for all you're trying to implement in a great school system for 2021 and 22. So let's move forward.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate it.
I
Thank you.
think it's brilliant. It sounds really smart. It really sounds smart. And let's go with it. Right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you guys for all you've implemented in this program.
Aaron, can you unmute Mrs. Williams?
Hello. Thank you so much for putting this together and walking through it. And I echo Lynn on how prepared you all are and how thoughtful the process has been. I just questioning the math taking a back step to the language arts program, and that language arts has been given priority to be during both A and B, and mathematics not. Mathematics has been given a space, or is the time that it is shown gives this space through academic enrichment or assistance, but it's not a guaranteed delivery similar to language arts. I just want to have a better understanding of why language arts is prioritized.
So I can take that one. Thank you so much for joining us, Ms. Williams. I always love hearing your voice. Basically, traditionally in Watchung, language arts has always been a double period. And in most districts, they would love to keep language arts at the middle school level a double period, because they are teaching reading, writing, speaking, viewing, and listening. They're supposed to be addressing all of those skills and making that bridge from the elementary learning to read and learning to write into getting the students into better thinkers and communicators in all aspects and prepared for high school and beyond. So that has been the approach at Watchung. What we tried to do with the flex time is give kids the opportunity to add more math on a daily basis. So that's why the math teachers would be available every day, and the language arts teachers would only be available once a day. I mean, not once a week, and the math teachers would be available every day, excuse me. And that's how we're trying to give kids more opportunity for math that maybe don't need the remediation piece, the basic skills piece. Does that answer your question?
I think it's also important to remind everyone, this is Kidd, about the STEM opportunities, and between the STEM class and the innovation and design class, the students have another full semester of mathematics oriented thinking and problem solving. So I think there's also that support. So I don't see it as a moving backwards. We're working within the original system and how this has been set up for years, and trying to be creative in how we can enhance math instruction within the use of time and how we unlock time. Aaron, can you unmute Tracy Bisignano?
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. Can I be heard?
Yes.
Okay, Thanks again. So my question is similar on the lines of Mrs. Williams. I'm just concerned because we had such a lack of math this year, 2.5 times a week, that I'm surprised that we're not coming back next year to bolster that more. In fact, when I looked at your slide and you talked about the things that you wanted to preserve, to keep, one of the things you mentioned was strong core academics. And I feel like math is a part of that. And it's not being preserved. And you wanted to preserve the double block of ELA. Well, I'm just wondering who you asked. Did you poll the community or the parents? Because honestly, this last year, the work was 5-to-1 ELA to every other academic subject. So I'm looking for more balance. And definitely math should not be one that gets dropped.
Mrs. Kidd, can you talk a little bit more about the how the schedule previously worked and in terms of because I think there's a thanks, Mrs. Biscano. I appreciate the feedback. I think there seems to be some confusion about how math was taught in the past and how many days it was meeting. And then with the COVID interruption and the approach this year with the AB schedule seemed to suggest that we were only having classes every other day, only in math and not in other courses. So Mrs. Kidd, if you could talk a little bit more about the history of the academic courses within the modified schedule, the modified rotating schedule that previously existed here.
Absolutely. So thank you, Mrs. Bisignano. I think that you were referring to the half-day COVID schedule when you were talking about this current year in the math instruction. So the schedule that we would be putting in place in the fall if we didn't go to the AB block was the traditional day with the 4 rotating days. And that, if I remember correctly, I'd have to go look at my slide, was a 41-minute block of time on a Monday, and then 52 minutes 3 other days of the week. So math was one of the courses that was dropped. What we didn't like about that is even though you had math 4 times a week, and I don't want to say the quality of instruction wasn't good, but kids weren't getting enough of those opportunities for deeper learning and application and mathematical thinking. So we were looking at ways to bolster our math program by enhancing the instructional strategies. And that comes from having longer periods of time. So what I need us to do is the COVID schedule is not the schedule that we're proposing. That was a half-day schedule. The schedule before COVID was that rotate and drop where kids would have math 3 times a week for 52 minutes and then a 40-minute period once a week. I hope that clarifies things a little bit. Mr. Alexis, is there anything you want me to add about that?
I think that covers it. Aaron, can we go to the next hand?
Carly, is that you?
It's Mrs. Afonso.
I saw Carly's name. I was excited.
Yes.
I don't want to hear from you.
Oh no. Carly says hi. I'm actually, I came in at 15 minutes late. I was having a really hard time getting on the Zoom meeting. So I don't know if you went over exactly what this is, but the period, I'm not sure if you called it the flex period, whether it was like a study hall or for extra help or for people that are doing some kind of band or art enrichment. Say a student is having a hard time and a teacher notices, I know for my child, they won't be the one to go up and say, hey, can I get some help during this time? Will a teacher call and say, hey, listen, during your, I call it study hall, I'd like you to come see me so we can work on a couple of things. Is that something that is for? And are the teachers going to be keeping their eyes out, or is it up to the kid to ask for help?
So in an ideal world, we'd like it to be up to the kid, but as you know, that's not realistic at any age. So yes, no, teachers would absolutely be able to invite students and actually expect them to show up at their classroom during that flex time. And we would put priority on what the student needs. So if a student was
Excellent.
having difficulty in math, they would have to show up at math rather than band lessons if that seemed to happen on the same day.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Mrs. Cirillo. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation and taking the question. So I wanted to know a little bit more about the math progression model and the criteria, and like what the ratio of kids that are going to be going into like 7th grade math versus the accelerated 7th grade math is, if there's some kind of split or what the criteria is, because of course there's going to be some kids who clearly belong in one or the other, but there's going to be a whole bunch of kids, in my opinion, who are somewhere borderline. And while this kind of model does present advantages to children who really can utilize the challenge and the extra, it also is a little bit demotivating for those who are on the borderline and don't make it and are really challenged by the environment. And knowing that there's some kids already who had like straight A's and average and above average iReady, not moving into the accelerated model really makes me want to know a little bit more about that to keep our kids really challenged and ready for the math of today. If you could tell me a little more, that'd be great. Thank you.
No, those are great questions. And so this will be an ongoing process, obviously, as we put this in place for the first time this fall. So the requirements, or I should say the criteria that we're looking at right now are the student grades. We're looking more at the overall grades, but we're also looking at assessment grades because we want to make sure that kids are secure in their learning. But we also know some kids just aren't great test takers. So we're really balancing that. We're looking at study habits and work skills, which is very difficult to do during this COVID time, but it is something that goes into the teacher's recommendation, which is the second thing we look at. So we look at the grades, we look at the teacher's recommendations. How do they feel the student would do in a more challenging, fast-paced class? And then also we are looking at the iReady, the last iReady test that they took, the diagnostic, which we're due to send home soon. I don't think, Mr. Alexis, we decided on what date we were doing it. We're trying not to do it snail mail this time because we know the copy didn't come out the greatest. But the iReady results also are part of it. So if your child is one of those borderline students, what I encourage you to do is reach out to the teacher, have that conversation. And if the teacher's not available, have that conversation with me. We're looking at placing kids in the most appropriate place where they can have the most solid foundation before they move on to those more complicated classes that are presented in high school. So that's where we are with it. It's a great question. We believe in meeting the student where they are. And if your child doesn't get into one of the advanced courses, there still will be differentiation within the classroom for the students at the different levels.
And to go along with that, Mrs. Kidd, I think it's important to note that we don't want this to be perceived as if, where someone starts in 6th grade means you're going to get placed in a track. We want to have this as fluid and as flexible as possible. We're looking for the most suitable placements, and we also understand that students grow at all different rates. So another benefit to having these enhancements to the math instructional opportunities in the new schedule is that there'll be opportunities for almost like a tutoring kind of relationship based on the student's needs, instead of just being in a classroom and having traditional instruction. So we're trying to look at this in creative ways and thinking about the best way to support the students so that they can progress based on their ability and potential.
Good evening, Ms.
Sims.
Sims.
Hi. Okay. So I had a couple of questions. So are we trying to, is this for starting in 5th through 8th, or is this just starting, after 5th grade, maybe 6th through 8th?
This is 6th through 8th. That's a great question. 5th
Okay.
will have more of an elementary feel as it does now.
Okay. All right. And then my next question, so with the math, being what, 2 days at 82 minutes per day? Is that what we're proposing?
So it would be either 2 or 3 days because it's every other day.
And then you're saying that the students will have 5 days a week at 30 minutes for additional math assistance. So how would that work? Because if there's what, how many, 4 or 5 math teachers and there's 300 kids, let's say, how would that work if, let's say 30 kids want extra help? How would that work?
So basically what we would do is we could keep it more structured where we assign kids, you know, this is the day you're going to go, but we really want to have them have the opportunity to go. And if 30 kids want math, we do have multiple math teachers that can sit there and give them math help. It happens sometimes where you see kids of different levels in the classroom together. I've witnessed it before where you see your Algebra 1 kids working with your 6th grade math kids. And it's a beautiful thing to see them working with each other. There's also times where the teacher might request, I need to see this group of kids. I'm going to be reteaching them something. Yes, you're welcome to come in and I'm going to come and check on you like they would in a normal classroom. I'll work with you, I'll work with them, I'll go back and forth between the groups. But what we really wanted to do is give the kids the opportunity, no matter what day of week it was, whether they already had math that day or if they had math the day before, to go and see a math teacher. And if they needed that extra help, or if there was a challenge problem they wanted to work on, that they would have that opportunity.
So, but that means that they probably won't get that one-on-one. They will definitely have other people in there, and that will kind of take away from the one-on-one aspect. Because to me, you know, if you're going to cut down the math and into 2 or 3 days at 82 minutes, which to me is very long, but okay, and offer the additional 30 minutes, to me, it's not, I would think that that would be like a 30-minute additional time for my child one-on-one, but that's not the case, or it probably wouldn't be the case, which kind of diminishes this whole thing for me. Like, I'd rather she have repetition daily than to have 2 days, long periods, and perhaps maybe have some 5 or 10 minutes one-on-one time with her teacher throughout the week.
And then, you know, I don't know if your child would fit into this, but if your child was somebody who needed that extra support more frequently, she would have 40 minutes every other day of an additional math period for that basic skills instruction. So she would have the 2 to 3 times a week of 82 minutes of her math class. Then she would have a small group for 40 minutes every other day. And then she would have the opportunity Monday through Friday to go see her math teacher for 30 minutes. So it's depending on the child's needs. But
Right.
you know, if she was someone who needed that support more frequently, like you're talking about, then that definitely would be built into her schedule and it wouldn't be optional. She'd have to go to it.
Yeah, but I don't think it's more of basic skills. I think it's more of her, you know, needing that repetition more so than it being basic skills. I think she's, you know, pretty good math person, but I mean, she absorbs it. But I think repetition with my child, I don't know about any other child, but repetition daily for her and lesser time works better, what I've seen in the past with her. It's, yeah, if you get an 82-minute course 2 or 3 days a week, I don't know how much she's going to stay focused in an 82-minute class as opposed to 40, 50-minute class every day or every other day or at least 4 days a week. So it's just, you know, from my standpoint, I think repetition is definitely key and daily is key. So I would be one to propose math and ELA being on the same page as far as how many days a week they go. That's it.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Hello, how are you?
Hi, how are you guys?
Good.
This is Gina Ponferrero. Nice to hear you guys. Thanks for putting this all together. I'm sure there was a lot of work that went into this. I also want to start by, I've thanked our teachers so many times and the administration for getting us through this year, but I just want to take one little second to thank the students, because I can't even imagine, the social, the psychological, the academic challenges that each student has experienced. And I feel like they've kind of been overlooked in that recognition. And I know how hard it is to get things done as adults, but I can't imagine how difficult it is for our children to be struggling. So, I applaud you in trying to think about how we're going to make this better for them next year. I'd like to understand a little bit better, if you can, the research. I know you said there was a lot of research that went into coming to the conclusion. I'd like, if you have specifically, I'd like to understand, what you guys have concluded or what the research is showing about students' ability to absorb attention spans at that level, at that age, with dense material like that. Because my concern is the message that we're hearing tonight is not all students need basic skills. So let's have this great tutoring program where students can go have one-on-one interactions with their teachers, which is phenomenal, right? It's great at a high level and at an adult intellectual level. The problem is, as Ms. Alfonso pointed out and Tracy pointed out, students probably aren't going to take advantage of that. And I'm sure there's a lot of them who are going to say that they may be going somewhere just to take a walk in the hallway. And I think it's concerning that math is the same amount of instruction as gym. And I think that's really a bad message to be sending to the community and to the students, because if more ELA equals higher test scores at the district level, isn't less math driving our lower math scores at the district level?
All very good questions. What the research has shown us is that the longer periods give the educators the opportunity to do something other than direct instruction. If you think about science, they can do the inquiry-based science and science labs and work together and have the collaboration without interfering with it mid-lesson. If you think about language arts, they're able to do a workshop model where there's a mini lesson and then the teachers are able to work with the students in small groups or individually on either their reading or writing or listening or speaking. It also carries through with mathematics. What the research has shown is that the short, frequent mathematic periods of instruction are mostly direct instruction, where the teacher is is usually reviewing homework and then either reteaching if there was a misconception or a misunderstanding, and then delivering maybe new instruction. And then the period ends. Maybe they do a couple practice problems together as a class. And there are students who go home unsure of what they were supposed to learn. They're hoping they took good notes. They're hoping that, they can call a friend. And there's a lot of that. And of course, we saw more of it with COVID. But what we're trying to do is avoid that. We want students to leave math class with a solid knowledge base. And when you're talking about attention spans, we talk about different strategies and different ways you can break up the period. So that way it's not direct instruction for 82 minutes. So I think that that's kind of the best way to explain what the research shows, is that it gives kids the ability to reflect, to goal set, to do assessments, not at the end of a unit, but throughout. Just little things like that make a very big difference, so we can really monitor where kids are and where we need to go with them.
Okay, I appreciate that, and thank you for the explanation. But what I still can't reconcile is, the statement, not all our students need basic skills, so they should take this opportunity to direct the trajectory of their math skills when our district math level scores are low.
The one thing, Gina, just give you a little bit of background on this, because you do raise some good questions. And the move towards block scheduling started probably 25 years ago, and probably started more at the high school level, but has moved to middle school levels. And it was always a concern that students wouldn't have a particular subject every day. And then there was a move more towards like what the high school has in place, our high school, where it's a rotating modified block schedule where you rotate and drop a period every 4 days, similar to what was in place here in Watchung Borough for a number of years. But again, even there, and when the high school moved to that model, there was concern by teachers and families about math instruction not being every day, but the amount of instructional time throughout the year actually increased. And it also has proven to not be a hindrance in any respect with respect to student achievement. particularly when you're not having math on, you skip one day during the week or you have it every other day. It just hasn't borne out in the research. As Karen pointed out, Montgomery has been using this model for a while, first at the high school and now at the middle school for a number of years. And that they have probably some of the strongest test scores in the county. So the idea that it's directly linked to daily instruction has not been, what we found in the research and experience of other districts. We're more interested in trying to enhance the opportunities for instruction and changing the dynamic in a way that's going to benefit kids rather than just having math instruction in the traditional sense every day.
I agree with that completely. I'm in favor of a block schedule in theory. I don't necessarily think these mini spurts as we've seen this year are demonstrative of success, because I don't think there was, unfortunately, much learning that happened this year. My 7th grader had the fortunate or unfortunate benefit of having a double stacked ELA to start her day at 66 minutes. And it was difficult. It's difficult for all the students. They had to remain silent, they had to remain focused. And let me tell you, the teacher that had them after that would always be reprimanding the students for acting out of turn. And I appreciate both sides of that, as the teacher who has to follow up to that 66-minute period and the student that's got to endure it. I don't know what the answer is, but I know the answer cannot be that math equals gym equals success, because math equals gym equals low test scores. And I can't get my head around that. And I really hope that you guys can figure out something a little bit better than this.
Going. Hi, this is Rhea Williams again, just giving a follow-up to the question and the statements that I've been hearing about that we're increasing instructional time for math. I'm just really concerned that we're likening instructional time to STEM time or to the time where they're getting extra help or extra. It's not a very organized and focused time to teach math. Math is as important as ELA. They are basic skills, and I remain concerned, even though all of that I've heard, I do remain concerned that we are not giving math instruction, not STEM, not anything else, but math instruction enough prominence in the kids' schedule.
So I guess my question for the community, thank you, Rhea, I appreciate that. My question to the community is neither of these schedules, our current schedule or the one that we're moving to in the fall, are going to make math and language arts time equivalent. So I would really like your opinion more about comparing the two schedules and which you think would be a better fit. So the language arts time is not going to be equal to the math time in either of those. What my team did was work within the parameters we have to increase the opportunities and the instruction and the mathematical experience for all students, those who require academic support, those who want the opportunity to enrich themselves, and then those just maybe who didn't understand the lesson the day before. So that's kind of where we went, is let's look at, and that's where the math progression came from and the new courses that are being written over the summer and the resources that we're getting. All of that came out of the committee to see how we can strengthen our math program and give kids more opportunities. But neither of the schedules make math and language arts equal. So I hear all of you, and that's what you're asking for, but neither of those are looking to do that in the fall.
Hi, this is Rhea again. In response to that, I think we've always had this perception that we needed such an extensive amount of instruction time for ELA. Wouldn't then the opposite be possible, that we increase the math time and afford the students more one-on-one time for the ELA portions? Maybe they need more personalized instruction for ELA as opposed to longer time in a group setting, longer blocks in a group setting for ELA. I mean, I definitely agree that it has not been ideal for math in the past, and that this new schedule does not improve upon that. And I do understand that, and I know that there are all kinds of efforts around it to, say that, STEM and there are other opportunities for students to get this extra assistance. But I think some students will need extra assistance also in ELA. And if we're not putting a focus on math and we're saying, oh, well, the enrichment time can be used for mostly math, then where are they going to get their enrichment or their support for ELA? I think it's a challenge in the way it's been prescribed, again, that math and ELA are not given the prominence, and that math is kind of lumped into STEM and science and things. I think math is a very complicated subject as well, as ELA and learning how to write and critical think. I understand that as well. So I don't unfortunately have the solution, but I don't think that having these very, very long blocks of group instruction setting is going to really get us to the place we want to be in ELA. And it's really going to diminish where we have been and we're trying to get to in math.
Okay, thank you for the feedback, Ria.
Hi, good evening. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this math program and for your hard work that you have implemented this. My question is the children who have missed the accelerated math from iReady program because the parents were not informed that iReady will be, the scores will be used to design the accelerated. So the accelerated children going to learn advanced thing than the regular math period. Is that correct?
Yes, but iReady is only one component of it. So, if you feel that, maybe your child had because we understand that sometimes there's poor testing days. So if you feel that your child maybe performed poorly on iReady, but still received the teacher recommendation and had the grades, again, I encourage you to reach out to the teacher. If the teacher's not available, I'll be more than happy to have the conversation with you.
So now then how, like the children who are in the regular math, how do you think that, what is the possibility that they can catch up to the accelerator? Because the accelerator they will be learning all in advance always than the regular math class, right?
So as Mr. Alexis mentioned earlier, students do mature and develop at different rates. So we may see that a child is accelerating and doing really, really well in either 6th or 7th grade, maybe the non-accelerated course. And then we can look at that for the following year. Of course, we would differentiate within the classroom. The teachers are very good at that, especially if we have the longer periods and the flex period opportunities for the students to get them to the place where they're, like you're saying, they're not falling behind. In the past, we didn't have these accelerated courses. And if we saw a child was doing really well in a grade level material, they would jump. And we would find there was a lot of catching up that had to be done within that current school year. So we're trying to build in that flexibility so that way as students develop and change, sometimes they just need to take it seriously. Sometimes it's developmental, who knows, that we are going to give them those opportunities. So like Mr. Alexis said, we're trying to make it as flexible as possible for the kids so we can support them where they are.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Hi, good evening. How are you?
Good evening.
I'm an incoming. I have two daughters that are incoming to Valley View for 5th grade. I just wanted to know if you can give me just maybe a little photo into what we're looking at as far as academics and a schedule for the 5th graders.
So the fifth graders have one homeroom teacher, just like fourth grade, all day, and they switch for their related arts courses. And they go to world language. They take both French and Spanish, and then they also take health and PE. And we're actually, we've created a video. The eighth grade students helped me immensely. And then some of the younger grades gave little shout outs and advice. And we'll be sending that out to fifth grade parents probably next week. Incoming fifth grade parents. So that way you guys have a little tour of the school and some more information about the program.
Okay,
Great questions.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
also wanted to know if you can tell me, sorry, as far as the world languages, will they have to take both the Spanish and the French, or will they be able to pick? Because my daughters have been at Bayberry, we're taking Spanish. But my husband is French, so they wanted to just go in that direction, or is it something that they would have to do both Spanish and French?
So in fifth grade, we have the kids take both so that they can kind of get a feel for the teacher that they would have for the next 4 years and the program. And then when they go to sixth grade, they get to choose which one they'd like to stay in for sixth, seventh, and eighth grade.
Okay, perfect. And then as far as the scheduling for, it would be the same as the sixth, seventh, and eighth graders as far as the time. So it would be 8:15 to 2:55.
Correct. The beginning and end of the day are the same.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How are you?
Welcome.
Thank you. I was having some problems with my phone earlier, but I was finally able to get in. I'm not sure if this was completely answered, but my daughter just started a new school. So she just started at Valley for seventh grade. And that was an adjustment coming from Summit where, she left all her friends. I do want to say she was able to maintain her grades. And there was an issue with the math, which she brought to my attention, that it wasn't accelerated when everything came out. So at this point, I just need to know what's the actual criteria. I was able to speak with her teacher, but it was a little bit unclear. So she said some things might be resolved or more questions might arise, so you might have more answers. What was the actual criteria to go to a more advanced class? And was the iReady was that always looked at as something to be used for going to the next level? That's what I need to know.
So iReady is new to the district, just like you this year.
Mhm.
So the teachers have had experience with it since the winter. We're using it as one indicator, especially since we don't have any state testing data for the past 2 years. But it's really based on the grades and the teacher recommendation. The iReady lets us know where a student falls when it comes to grade level security in different concepts. So if they're secure in different concepts at the grade level, then we're comfortable with them. If they're above the grade level, then we're looking at how can we further challenge them. So we're trying, it's kind of like a puzzle this year, because we know with COVID, there may be gaps because students just couldn't attend if they were virtual. Like it was just very hard to learn on your own at home. We also know there might be some students who accelerated in that environment. So we're trying to be, we'll always be flexible, but we're trying to be as flexible as possible. What we don't want to do is we don't want to push kids to an accelerated pace where they're learning concepts more quickly if they're not ready. So it's a very fine line. And I think it's something that, if you already spoke with the teacher, that's great. If you want to have further conversations with me, we can set up a time to chat. I'd be more than happy to kind of look over everything. But it's also, like we spoke about earlier, it's also something where you're not in a certain track forever. We tried to build in all those crazy lines in the chart show that we are building in flexibility for the kids. You know, this year, yes, because of COVID, but, you know, even in a normal year, because we understand that kids do change drastically from 6th to 8th grade. And we want to really give them the opportunities to build the best math foundation they possibly can.
Ms. Kidd, I appreciate you taking my question, but I do have to state, I just didn't think it was fair that we didn't know, I didn't know that this was going to be taken in such a strong count, the iReady scores. In addition, Ms. White did offer at the end, which would have been 2 days before school ending, for her to take the test. And she was already mentally out of it by Monday, you know, starting vacation. So I didn't think that was fair. So if we can maybe talk offline, I would really appreciate that, because she definitely wants to excel in the other courses.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to set up a time to meet with you.
Thank you, Ms. Kidd.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi, thank you so much for taking my call. I just wanted to thank you for everything, but I do have a concern with the math. I too feel that math should be more important than gym or any other classes. And with my concern with that is I've had 2 other kids that went through Valley View, and when I ask them how their day is going, a majority of the time that they tell me is they're sitting in class and they're given worksheets or they're watching a video and not actually being taught. So I'm not sure how 82 minutes, will they be sitting there watching a video or just working on math sheets, or they're actually going to be teaching going on?
Well, absolutely, there would be teaching going on, but different strategies you would see. You'd see the teacher working with small groups. You'd see the teacher working with individuals. You'd see the teacher working with the whole class. You'd see students working together. It depends what the lesson is. But in that 82-minute block, it forces you, like I said before, not to just teach in one way, one mode. You'd have to mix it up every 15 to 20 minutes to give the kids the multiple opportunities so you could implement those teaching strategies.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But if you kind of like survey parents, you'll get a majority of parents telling you that math is mainly taught by video once you get to a certain grades at Valley View. So will somebody be able to make sure that it's more instructional teaching versus video teaching?
So I'm not quite sure what you're referring to, but, you know, if you want to have a conversation, we can. But yes, there's teacher, you know, I observe the teachers 2 to 3 times a year formally, but informally, I'm always popping into the classrooms. Obviously, you know, the past year and a half I've been here, I've only been able to be here pre-COVID for 2.5 months. So I haven't, I can't really speak to it, but that is the practice. Is we do walkthroughs and we do formal observations. And during those, what I would do is I would give teachers feedback and support, you know, in whatever strategies they were implementing. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, it does. I just felt like I was just a little concerned with 82 minutes and how was that going to keep the kids' attention, and what the procedure would be for those 82 minutes.
Absolutely. And the another piece of the puzzle is that we've been talking about it as a faculty, how do you even write lesson plans differently for an 82-minute period? Again, you're looking at changing your mindset from giving that direct instruction and going over homework, and then, you know, sending the kids off to their next class, to really getting into the content, giving them more practice and more application, you know, whatever the course may be.
Okay. My last question is I have a 5th grader coming in, and what is the procedure in the beginning of the year? Will the teachers review 4th grade, because of a lot of it wasn't, a lot of it may have been lost because of COVID, or like, is there something that we can do to keep our kids after for extra help if they need it in the beginning of the year, or what will happen in 5th grade?
So that's a great question. So at the beginning of the year, the teachers will be giving the iReady assessment, which will basically let us know where the kids fall, what skills they're secure in, was there a summer slide, were there any gaps? They also give regular pre-assessments before the different units of study, so that way they know more specifically where they fall with what they're going to be teaching next. So that's kind of what the beginning of the year will look like, and that will lead to different programming options. We do plan on running our Pursuit of Excellence program, which is a before or after school program to support kids in math or language arts if they need it. And then, as I spoke of before, we do have a basic skills program built into the school day in either schedule that would help those kids additionally in a small group setting during the school day if they couldn't attend before or after, or as a supplement to do both.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have Ms. Kleinberg.
Hi, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much for the effort that you put into making this schedule. I know you asked whether you think that the current proposed schedule, the AB block, is better than the last schedule. I think it could be, but I think it's important to evaluate the emphasis that our district is putting on math. I think that we do need more of an emphasis on math as much as with language arts. With math, I feel that the students need repetition, they need practice, they need to practice their math problems every day in order to succeed, in order to excel, in order to get more of those kids in the accelerated math program. And that's not possible with having math 2 days a week for 80 minutes. I know that a lot of kids would feel uncomfortable to go to the extra help during the non-structured math during the free periods. And I think that kids can't be trusted to seek out their own help. And oftentimes, at least from my experience, these teachers have too many kids to focus on to be seeking out our kids and asking specifically to meet with them. I'm wondering if Montgomery also has math only 2 times a week, and if there's an opportunity to keep the AB block as proposed, but also add as much emphasis on math as with language arts. Thank you.
Great questions. Yes, math is in Montgomery every other day. So it's 2 or 3 times a day, just like our schedule that we'd like to implement in the fall. They also offer the flex period, but they do not make their math teachers available 5 times a day, 5 times a week. They're only available certain days of the week. And language arts is also available a certain number of days a week, as is each content area. So that would be the one big difference, is us giving access to our math teachers daily. I'm trying to think what your second question was. I'm sorry.
I just think that we shouldn't keep math at the same emphasis as STEM, gym, music, and all the related arts. Math is vital to our children. It's more important than science and social studies. It's more important. And it doesn't have that emphasis in our district.
No, I absolutely, I hear everybody, and I hear everyone saying that. Unfortunately, we have to pick which schedule at this point we're going to move to. We're either going to go to our current schedule, which is the rotating drop with the traditional Monday, or we're going to go to the AB block. We don't have the time or the resources at this point to make math and language arts happen the same amount of time. So that's kind of why we're we're having this presentation to, I hear everyone and what they're asking for, but it's not possible for the fall. So we really wanted the input on which of the two schedules, the current schedule, which is the traditional Monday with the rotate and drop, or the AB block with the enhanced math opportunities.
And we do, just so everyone is clear on this, and Mrs. Kidd touched on it a little bit, but not as much earlier, that we have these state content standards in New Jersey, student learning standards, and we're required to offer these, related arts classes, phys ed, and there's a certain level of prescription that we have to abide by. But Mrs. Kidd's right now, based on our current situation, our current staffing, it's not like we can just move teachers around and create a different balance between math and language arts for this year.
Hi, this is Gina Pontorero again. Thanks for letting me speak again. I don't understand, why is it that we're forced to select between the old schedule, the drop schedule, or the 82-minute block schedule? I think we have a consensus, even with administration, that everyone thinks math is not enough, which is why we're now offering flex time. But I think if we're honest to ourselves, I think we're going to come to the conclusion that our students are not going to avail themselves of that. I mean, I'd be curious to know how many students actually sought teachers' assistance, this past year over COVID. I know that we were fortunate, we had great teachers, and I know my daughter, did speak with some of her teachers in the afternoon. But I find it really difficult to believe that children are just going to be selecting this on a regular basis. And again, we can't say that basic skills, students who need to be trained or receive extra help in those are the ones who'll be seeking that in the afternoon, because our math scores at the district level are just low. I mean, I'm not hearing an answer to it. So I can't understand why we would only select between two schedules and say it's either drop or block 82, and it's just not possible. So I don't understand why it's not possible. We don't have the resources. We didn't, study enough. We didn't solicit enough feedback. We don't, why is it is an impossibility for language arts and math to be equally valued in our district?
I'm having a little trouble unmuting. Sorry about that. I think what Karen means is that returning to the block schedule, the rotating block schedule, would allow us to have math on a more regular daily basis. The periods wouldn't be as long, so we could go back to having math 4 times a week, every week, which seems to be a lot of the feedback we're receiving. We were hopeful to go forward with the proposed AB schedule because, again, it allows for deeper learning opportunities, and it also allows for more professional collaboration so that we can continue to work on and advance the instructional strategies with the faculty. So I guess it's not that we don't value math the same way. We just have a certain, we have a certain staffing system in place right now, and we have to be able to, we can't assign teachers that are not certified to teach additional math classes. So if we have ELA staff, we need to put them with the ELA courses. If we have math staff, we put them in the math courses, but we also wanted to create more of this flex time. In fairness, if the feedback is that no one thinks the kids will show up or that's not good enough, maybe it does need to be studied more. Maybe something else needs to be considered, and that's fine. We've said that from the beginning. I was, and I've said this to the Board of Ed members, I was very impressed with the speed with which Mrs. Kidd was able to do this, particularly during a COVID year. And typically when you have schedule changes, it takes a couple of years to do that, to not just do the research, to get everyone on board, to make sure that this is going to be the appropriate kind of schedule for this community. When a high school schedule goes under a transition like this, it can take anywhere from 2 to 5 years. So maybe it does need to be studied some more. So we appreciate all the feedback, but please don't think that we value math.
I hear you, but I guess I guess the next question then would be, why wouldn't we simply just hire more math teachers? If our students are in need of that, why wouldn't we just do that?
Well, we'd have to redesign the schedule to make more, you'd have to create more periods. And I don't even know logistically if that's possible as simple as that. But, like I said, we can look at it and, and again, we were talking about the schedule for next year. No one's saying that the schedule, once it's put in place, if it is put in place, would be set in concrete. It would never change or evolve, or we wouldn't work towards something that created different kinds of opportunities. We would assess whether or not kids were benefiting from this flex time. Apparently they do benefit from the flex time in Montgomery and the every other day schedule, but that doesn't mean it would work here, and we'd have to monitor it and assess it and then evaluate it. So that's how we were approaching it.
Yeah, which is correct. That's absolutely right. I guess another question I would have is pre-COVID schedule on the drop schedule, math was still valued less than language arts because there wasn't equal math instruction by far to language arts pre-COVID. So going back to the pre-COVID schedule now, as opposed to the 82 block, I think we're still doing the same disservice to the kids. I mean, I know it's the summer, I know it's, September is approaching, but I think it behooves us to try to get this in line for September, or we're going to have another missed opportunity for adequate education.
Well, Gina, thank you for the feedback. That's what I said. We're going to continue to look at it and see if there's something we can do to adjust it. But, no promises. Just got to do the best we can with the available resources and the way the middle school scheduling works in terms of placing kids in these classes and the prescribed content standards for New Jersey. Mrs. Hunsinger, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So just a few questions. I like the idea of providing more flex time and challenging our children. I am concerned about the amount of math instruction, but it does sound like, longer periods. It does concern me with younger children, the attention span, but to diversify, that also makes sense. I guess my question is how are we challenging our children to allow them to grow? So one of the things we've talked about is, the math placement, for instance. So if we're placing our children if we're saying our child is on a border, if the teacher says, this child's on the border, they could go into an accelerated or they could not. How are we working to communicate with the parents in a way so that they're aware of that and a decision can be made as to whether or not this child could be challenged, and let's push them forward and then we can reassess at another time. And I just have to say, and I hear what you're saying about the formula and the teacher and how they did in class, and that iReady was a small portion of that. That was not my personal experience. And so I just want to understand the formula that's being used. I think we do a disservice to our children by not challenging them enough to step up to an occasion. I think they will if they are given that opportunity. And so I hear a lot of talk about additional assistance for children that might be struggling, but how are we working with children who are excelling in their class and allowing them to continue to grow and thrive and develop so that they can meet that next level of instruction, and they know how to rise to a challenge as opposed to just sitting in a class, understanding everything and getting good grades. And this is my third child going through the school, and so this has been a repetitive question for me. The other question I do want to ask is we've talked about Montgomery. That is the only school that you've mentioned with the block schedule. So I'm just curious if you've looked into any other schools that may also offer a block schedule and whether they've had success or not. And also understanding from Montgomery, how many of the students that are in that school system, and I don't know, they might not have this information, but are they all is that success based solely on what they're learning in the classroom, or is there a group of those children that might be getting additional assistance outside of school? I do have friends that live there. I know there's a lot of tutoring and Kumon and additional, even at the middle school level. So just trying to understand the components that make up that success. Is it strictly just the current schedule, or is it also for additional assistance they're getting outside of the school system? And then my third question, is you talk about assessment. Any change takes time to come into place and for us to be able to measure success. It's not going to happen in a month or 3 months or 6 months or even possibly in a year. So if we were to move to the block schedule, what's sort of your time frame on that assessment to say, okay, we've moved to this, it's been a transition for the teachers and the students and the parents within, this many years. If we don't see progression, are we going to, what's plan B, I guess, is the question. So what's that time frame for assessment, and what's kind of plan B if it doesn't work? Should we move that direction?
Okay, I'm going to do my best to remember all of your questions. So the first one was any other school districts? And yes, JP Case in Flemington is another school district that we've been in contact with, and they've had great success. They don't call it flex time, but they do have a period similar to that, where the kids have choices of what they can do during that time. They also, if I remember correctly, they talked about how they tried to put some clubs within the day and things like that during that period. Knowing that our district really wants to emphasize math, we chose not to go in that direction, but it's something that we could always look at, like you were talking about, when we're assessing the success of the program and what needs to be tweaked, what needs to be enhanced, what needs to be changed. To me, that's an ongoing process. So that's checking in with students and parents, throughout the first year, and then, in subsequent years, looking at our programming, looking at our students, the amount, it could be the amount of HIB cases, it could be the amount of discipline, it could be the performance on test scores, it could just be, feedback from the high school on how prepared our kids are, it could be feedback from the parents on what home life is like now. Is it less stressed? It could be from the kids. Do they have more opportunity to manage their time if they have that baseball game after school? They don't have to worry about 3 tests the next day out of their 8 classes. So there's all different ways to measure that, but I think it's an ongoing process. There's not like a strict date or a deadline. I also know of a few high schools that have implemented it and talking to them. And then in the case of Montgomery, when you're talking about performance, they've always been a high performing district. When they changed to the block schedule, they maintained their high performance. They built in more opportunities for those kids that were, like you were talking about, those kids that were borderline. They already had a strong special education program. They had a strong, academic program to begin with, but those kids that were borderline really benefited from it. And then the social emotional piece, helping those kids that have different learning needs, who have anxiety, who have depression, or who are basically just middle schoolers, they saw a big impact with them. As for outside help, they've, like you said, that's a community where there are kids who take private lessons for piano. There are kids who take private, tutoring for mathematics. There are kids that do all take advantage of all different types of opportunities. So when we're looking at their success, that wasn't something that changed in the community from the traditional schedule they had implemented, where math was every day, to the new block schedule. Did I miss one of your questions? I apologize if I did.
I think the only other question I have, which is separate from the block. So thank you. That was very helpful. And especially from Montgomery, understanding that when they switched their schedule, they didn't see a change in the performance, that there wasn't a dip in performance when they moved to that block. So the things that people were doing prior, they continued to do. I think the only other question I have is just really kind of understanding, again, like as we talk about challenging our children, I think we could do a better job in the communication front of the parent teacher communication, and maybe that block schedule would allow that to happen. But I'm just trying to understand the formula around how we make determinations. And I know you're saying it's teacher recommendation, it's based on how they performed in class, and then iReady is a component of that. I just am trying to understand a little bit more kind of how that gets broken down, because my experience is that there was a larger concentration put on iReady. And so I'm just trying to understand that piece a little bit more. And I think some more transparency around, it sounds like a lot of parents have some concerns there. So I think some more transparency around those pieces of determinations would make it much easier, and then transition easier and less back and forth between parents and teachers and you. And that might be helpful for everyone.
No, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And in a regular year, we'd also have park data. We would have had more frequent communication. And if not, that's definitely something that we can enhance. So I really appreciate that feedback. And we'll work on it definitely for the future.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunsinger. We have 2 more hands, and we're getting to about 8:45. We have Mrs. Sims and Mrs. Carvalho. Mrs. Sims, go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hello, can you hear me?
Good evening.
Good evening. Hello. So, I truly hope that you guys are, really jotting down the points, because I think all of the parents have raised really great points. Given that we are Watchung and we do hold education to a high standard, being a blue ribbon district, we do know and we do notice and have noticed that, in terms of scores, test scores, we have been lower than we should be. So and if we're not going to survey the parents on this scheduling, I'm going to put mine out there now. I think we need to keep it with the rotating block and fix the rotating block, because we all notice that the math is not getting enough attention, and math is core, same as ELA. So they should have the same attention. And furthermore, my daughter is doing well in math, and she could be challenged a little bit more. Unfortunately, she didn't get the accelerated math. But she do have, and she does, and she's had a lot more homework and studies in ELA. So if there was any stress with anything, it will be in ELA more so than any other subject. So I know that you guys will take this back to the drawing board and fix the current schedule so that mathematics is really, looked at a little bit longer and a little bit harder and more studies around it, so that we can, bump that up a bit, because it is a core subject just as ELA. So it should be on the same playing field. That's it. Thank you.
Mrs. Sims, can I just ask for clarification? When you say keep the rotating block schedule, you're talking about the
pre-COVID schedule.
The pre-COVID, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you very
so
much.
I think more
thank
repetition
you.
daily is better than the longer period, hour and 20 minutes in math, 2 days to 3 days a week. And I don't think that's conducive for young kids to be focused and locked in for an hour and 20 minutes per day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Hi, thank you so much for allowing me to ask another question.
Sure.
I just have a quick question concerning as far as I guess I can say, we emphasize a lot of I don't want to say placing children, but the children's abilities based on iReady tests. And I know this year we didn't have the park. I just want to know, being an educator myself, this year was a very tough year for both teachers and students. We had a lot of students that were out basically a full year out of the learning regular school day, a regular curriculum. How much of an emphasis are we going to put on these iReady scores in order to really narrow down to where a child's learning ability is, or where they should be placed if they do need an additional help, or if they're not being challenged enough? Only because I know, we had to give a lot of leeway to students this year just because of it being a tough year in general. I know that, again, like I said, some of my students that I had did better being home because they just like the one-on-one ability. And I had some other, including my daughters, that excelled, they excel better when they're at school opposed to being home. So I know that just going into September, it's going to be rough. And we know that in adjusting. I know for my girls, they're going to a new school. So that's going to be a new adjustment, learning, Valley View and learning a new schedule and a different way of teaching and new teachers. So how much is all this going to be incorporated as far as testing and grading to where technically where a child is in their learning ability, or where they are coming from another school based on a test, not only for, being out of school for so long, quote unquote, out of school, a normal school year, to now the summer. How much emphasis are we putting on these tests and the abilities that our kids have?
Great questions. So the iReady diagnostic assessment, what it does is it evaluates kids based on the state standards. So it adjusts as the test adjusts as the students get questions right, the test gets harder and more challenging in that area. And if they get them wrong, it goes lower. So basically what it does is the results of the test let us know where each individual student is in relation to their grade level standards and expectations. So if we have a child who may be in geometry, a sixth grader in geometry might come out in fourth grade in certain concepts and may in algebraic functions come in at eighth grade. And this is a sixth grader. So what that information does is it allows the teacher to see the individual child as well as his or her entire class in a snapshot. So they kind of use it as a tool to help them plan instruction. Of course, during instruction, we still have classroom assessments. We have teachers observing kids, looking at their work, and making adjustments as they always have. But what iReady does is it gives us more details than, say, the PARCC assessment or the NJSLA assessment did, which gave us like broad scope of it. This actually breaks things down for us. It gives teachers next steps on what to work with students if they don't have it in their bag of tricks, reinforcement strategies. So to answer your question, we're using iReady as one of the many tools to help us identify where students are, because this year more than ever, our kids are going to be at different places based on how well they were able to acclimate to the different learning environments they were in, whether it was virtual, hybrid, or in person.
Right. So, but I agree with what you're saying, but my question is, how accurate do we really think this test is going to be based on the fact of that we just went through a COVID year? Kids have not been in a normal learning environment, and we're just coming out of summer where it's been a crazy year in general.
Right. Well, Diana, they're going to take it again in the fall, and it's going to let us know exactly what areas they need to have a little bit more, maybe if there's any gaps where they need more help or where they're secure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Mrs. Gilligan, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Oh, hi, good evening. Just want to, thank you for all your efforts throughout the year in trying to enhance the instruction for the students. But I would just like to echo the concerns of Mrs. Sims, Mrs. Williams, regarding the schedule and other parents. I don't agree with this block schedule. I don't think it's appropriate for middle school students. I would actually like to see, a little more comprehensive citations regarding the effectiveness of a block schedule for middle grade students. I mean, I know the one citation was from over 20 years ago. So, I just kind of question the effectiveness of this for, middle grades, the middle school students. I think it's very appropriate for high school, but developmentally and handling the long, extensive block periods, I'm not sure really is appropriate. You did mention, students were, needing less homework or less pressure. I just feel like the extended periods increase pressure for the students, and I feel like there needs to be more emphasis placed on math in this district. I don't think offering math 2 to 3 times a week is beneficial for the students. Many students thrive on daily repetition. I think most students do. And I don't think it's beneficial for students to have a free period. I know my children left unattended, unstructured, will not be taking advantage of like a study hall opportunity. That's appropriate for high schoolers, not middle schoolers. They need direct instruction with the teachers. And just as Mrs. Pontiero had mentioned, then we need to look at our schedule, the traditional day schedule, and and modify that, to allow for increased math time, but I really don't think that block scheduling is the way to go. And it really seems to be that a staffing issue. I've been to board meetings. There's been teachers hired for other subjects or other grade levels. I think there needs to be an emphasis on more teachers hired in the district, and especially at the middle school. This needs to be taken a little more seriously. Heard another parent, who's been through the system with other children saying that, even the children who need to be just pushed a little bit further, this needs to be looked at within the district. There's concerns from parents. And I would just also like to recommend that there be more surveys sent out to parents. I think a lot of parents were even unaware of this presentation, or they're unaware of the schedules that students currently have. I think there's a lack of communication. And I think that parents need to be more, I think there needs to be more of these presentations, not just at board meetings, because a lot of people do not attend them. And, get more input from our stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we have two more hands raised. And why don't we, whenever you're ready.
Yes,
ahead.
thank you, Mrs. Cirillo. Thank you again. Very quickly, I know you really, thank you again for devoting all this time this evening to actually collecting the feedback. There may not, some have, cited transparency, and yes, maybe some earlier knowledge would have been helpful, but in fact, this is the time for us and you are listening. So thank you. Very quickly, earlier, there was one of my questions. I don't know that it was answered. I don't know if you have the answer, Ms. Kidd, but I just wasn't wondering with that accelerated math and the progressive model, and of course there's multiple grades, but approximately what percentage of the students are currently slated for the accelerated class, let's say the 7th grade class versus the standard?
I will be absolutely honest with you. I haven't had a chance to look at it.
Okay, very good. Fair enough. Thank you.
But if you call me in a couple of weeks, I will have the answer for you.
Thank you.
Okay. One more hand raise.
Yes, hi. I would
Hello.
like to echo the sentiment of Ms. Gilligan, if I pronounce her name properly. I think she has some very good points. I think we need to look closer at the teachers as well, and also more surveys to parents and also to the students, because the students also have insight on instruction as well. And also, I have children who have already gone through the system, and they have also given me feedback that I think then can assist you guys in your recommendations. And I don't agree with your new program implementation, because I think it's going to put the students at a more frustration level, especially after, post-COVID, what they've gone through before. I don't think that this is going to be an effective strategy to help the students.
Thank you for the feedback, Ms. Jackson.
You're welcome.
And we're at 8:56. I don't see any more hands. I just want to thank everyone for participating and offering the feedback. We're going to discuss all of it, and we'll determine the best course of action moving forward. But thank you very much for your time as we begin summer recess here. So I wish everyone a wonderful summer. And we have a board meeting on Thursday, just as a reminder. But again, thank you everyone for your time and your feedback.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.